Everybody, welcome back. I'm the Stretch Professor, and today we're going to be going over the preliminary patch notes for patch 11.1. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. It's quick, it's easy, just takes a couple of clicks, so try to help me out. Please do that if you enjoy the content. And then we stream every night on YouTube starting around midnight Eastern Standard Time, usually go till about 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Very friendly, chill community, only on YouTube. We'd love to have you, so come by, check that out. And I'm going to be doing some fresh tier lists, patch notes, guides, and just all sorts of new content for the new season. So be sure to check back in every day. So I do release content every single day. Okay, so let's go ahead and get in here. So the official patch notes have not been released, but I'm going to try to see if I can get a tier list for each role done in depth, meta predictions, all kinds of the good in-depth type of content that y'all are used to on the channel. So I want to make sure I get all of that out by Friday, so I'm just going to go ahead and do these patch notes. So this is based on a Mark Yetter tweet that he said earlier today that this was pretty much going to be it, so I don't expect any additional surprises. But instead of just reading this, especially for the item adjustments, I went ahead and wrote out a Google Doc for you of the changes and then what I think the changes will be in terms of nerfs and buffs and how it might impact the meta. So let me go ahead and crank that up one more there. And then once we get over to the champions, I'll just move back to the tweet itself. But I think this is a little bit easier just to help you kind of visualize some of the predictions that I'm going to say. Okay, so Grievous Wounds. First of all, they are changing the timer from 2 seconds to 3 seconds. So what that is, and this is just on items, so any item that reduces healing is going to be increased a little bit there. So that's going to nerf a lot of the predominant healing things out there. So Gore Drinker, Divine Sunder, Aatrox, Kayn, Yuumi, all of the big perpetrators of this massive healing that's just been way overdone in the preseason is now going to be a little bit weaker. So 2 seconds to 3 seconds is a long time. And this is going to affect champs, particularly that can go in and out of combat a little bit while their healing's going on. So, if the ADC is attacking the tank or the bruiser or whatever, the Aatrox, and then the ADC gets zoned off of the Aatrox for a little bit and the buff falls off and then he's able to heal a lot, that's a big deal. Or sometimes even Kayn, I think, depending on the timing of it, he might actually, whenever he goes inside them as Red Kayn, it might actually, the Grievous Wounds might fall off before he pops back out, and then he's still going to get the massive healing off of that. So it's just going to help some of those edge cases where the healing debuff might fall off right before a really big heal, or something like Vlad, if he's going in and he's pooling, and the last time you hit him, before he ults, you hit him, then he pulls, then he might be able to pop back up previously and heal for a ton, because that Grievous Wounds is going to fall off within 2 seconds in some scenarios. So I think this will be a nice change, especially for the Morellos, because Morellos is already a pretty good item to get. You're not really going that far out of your way to get the 60% reduction on Morellos, versus Executioners is pretty terrible if you have to upgrade it. And you don't see that other one that often, the Silvermane or whatever it's called, the one for fighters and bruisers. So I think this is primarily for Morello. So I would be getting a Morello. Now they are nerfing some of the healing off of Gore Drinkers, so we'll see how that does. But I would be getting a Morello almost every game, second or third item probably, as most mages in the mid lane. It's because it does so much healing reduction, and there's so much healing in the game that it's ridiculous right now. So anyways, a little bit of buff to mages who can get Morello, which is the best debuff item in my opinion. And a slight nerf to some of these other champs, although they will still be quite strong. Shurelya's is the movement speed is getting increased from 40% to 60%. I don't think this is going to shake up the meta that much. Very few champions get this item and have a lot of success on it. I have people ask me all the time, why don't I do this on Recon? And Recon is one of the people who potentially might be able to benefit from this. So if we look at Recon, but the problem is, and this is obviously going to be a support item for the most part, it's possible someone like a Vlad might like something like this after the buff and after the nerf to some of his items, but I doubt it. I think it's mostly going to be a support item. But if you look here at Recon, and they aren't nerfing Mandate, which is pretty crazy with how popular that item's been. So it's the most popular item on him, but Mandate's still 2% higher. And the main reason for this is Mandate, just the AP is so good on Recon, and I'll talk about this in the support tier list video, so be sure to stay tuned for that. I'll probably release that either later today or tomorrow, so I'm not going to go mega in-depth here, but AP is just super good on him, and that's how it is on a lot of champions right now. It is pretty much everybody's either going Mandate or Locket, and there are a couple of select champions that are going Moonstone, but very, very few people want to go Shirelias just because the stats on it are terrible. Like, you're paying a huge opportunity cost to get that active, and it's on a 90-second cooldown versus these, you know, Imperial virtually has no cooldown, and it has good stats, and it has a good active. Locket does have that 90-second cooldown, but its stats are just way better. Right, it's got the ability haste, has the 200 health, but it also has 30 on the armor and magic resist, and that's about 1,200 gold worth of resist. And it's like, is it really worth on Alistar or Leona or someone like that giving up, you know, 1,200 gold worth of resistances to get a little bit of movement speed and a little bit of mana regen, maybe a little bit more health? You know, I don't think so, right? And the mythic passive's not that great either. 2.5% movement speed. Okay, so you get like 8 movement speed or something like that on a lot of characters. You know, that's like a third of a boot. It's like, come on, man. It's just really not that good. Versus something like the Locket of the Iron Solari one is 2 armor and magic resist per person in a stack. So that doesn't sound like much, but that's going to be about 80 gold per person that's close to you. So when you're in a team fight, 5 people, that's 400 gold worth of value that you're giving your team off of that consecration. So I just don't know where it goes, because the tanks are going to want Locket most of the time. Sometimes tanks will get Chem Tank. It's rare. Or like Sunfire Aegis. But most of the time it's going to be Locket. Most other champs that aren't tanks are going to get Imperial. And there's a couple of champs like Yuumi and Seraphine that might want Moonstone. But there's just not really a space. So I don't know. Like, it sounds like a really big buff. And maybe Recon gets it, maybe Bard gets it. It's possible someone like Alistar might want it, but I just don't think it's going to shake up the meta that much. It would be a lot more impactful if they reduced the cooldown to 1 minute like they did with Gale Force instead of 1.5 minutes. Then we'd be talking, because then you could actually make plays much more often. But right now, it's like you're already fast enough to catch them most of the time with 40%. So yes, there will be some edge cases where this could be a big difference, but by and large, it's going to be the same thing, and it's just not going to be picked a lot. So I really wish they either would have buffed the base stats on it, or make it a 1 minute cooldown. And even if they have to nerf the stats, nerf the health on it, whatever, just the 1 minute cooldown, and just make it the play-making item, right? Like, you're squishy, you don't have a lot of stats, but you're going to make some plays. I think that would be a really nice identity to carve for this item that would differentiate from some of the stat sticks, like the Locket, like the Mandate. So, anyways, interesting buff, but I just don't think it's going to matter. Maybe on Bard and Recon, but I don't think it's going to happen. Archangel's getting a slight tap, you know, an extra 65 AP. So champions that are getting this already are going to like this. So like a Nivea is probably the most mainstream champ. That champion's still really strong, even after the nerfs. And then like Ryze is getting a pretty good buff on this patch, so he'll like it. Cassiopeia still sees some play, not a lot. She'll like it. Cassidon maybe, but he's really far out of the meta because he's just too squishy without Rod of the Ages. Kind of similar with Cassiopeia. Without having that Rod, it can feel sort of rough. But anyways, probably not going to matter. But Anivia's the biggest one. She already gets it, so she'll like it. Ionians, now this is an interesting one. They're taking it from 15 ability haste to 20. So any champion that doesn't necessarily want to roam around a lot early, or has really long cooldowns but high impact spells, might like this. So Lulu is the first one that I thought of. You know, she's going to stay in lane, and she really wants those cooldowns because her polymorph gets down to like a 12-second cooldown. Her shield's pretty high impact, 8-second cooldown, but it's really that polymorph is just so strong. So having the extra 5 ability haste is a big deal. Rakan's another one who might like this. Yes, he does like to roam around too, and yes, he does like to reposition off of Boots of Swiftness, but he has really long cooldowns and really high impact spells. So his shield and his W both go down to about a 12-second cooldown, and his ult is pretty much a kill every time it's up, or it should be. So he has really high impact ult, or really high impact spells that are on long cooldowns. Janna, similar, right? Like, she can go mobility, she can do swiftness, that does interact with her passive, but, you know, her shield, her tornado, all that stuff is a pretty long cooldown, so that's helpful. And then Seraphine, I think, already gets Ionian pretty much every game. You know, same drill, longer cooldowns, high impact spells, so she'll like it. So it's really mostly enchanters that are going to be hanging out in the laning phase. Now, Nami could go in here too, but because she buffs her own movement speed a pretty good chunk with Mandate and with her passive, then I think Swiftness is probably better, but it'll certainly make these boots a much more interesting choice. I'm not saying these champs are going to be like immediately way more dominant with these boots, but that is pretty significant, especially because a lot of these champs want to get Staff of Flowing Water second, and it doesn't have any ability haste on it, so you're not going to have to worry about diminishing returns off of this. If you get this plus, your 20 off a Mythic, that's going to be 40 ability haste, which I think is good for somewhere in the neighborhood of like 28% cooldown reduction equivalency, so it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Dustblade, now these items, they are gutting these items. So if your champion gets these items on this list, it's bad news bears most of the time. Like, I think this is just brutal, but I'm okay with it in a lot of cases. So Dustblade is going from 100 proc damage down to 65, and it's going from 30% of your bonus AD to 25%, and in exchange you're getting 5 AD. So that is a huge nerf, because these champions want to get kills, they want to get resets, because Dustblade really doesn't do a lot unless you're getting those resets. It's single target, it's on a pretty long cooldown, you're only going to trigger it once in a fight, so you need those kills, you need those resets. So Kha'zix is obviously the big one that this is going to hit. So I expect Kha'zix to lose 1 or 2% off of this, and he really doesn't have a great alternative either. Like, you can do Prowler Claw, but that's also getting nerfed. But he just doesn't have the luxury of getting other items, I don't think. And it's so good because it resets his unseen threat and allows him to reposition for more potential isolations with his Q. So that's a big hit to Kha'zix. I mean, he might even lose more than 2%. I think it's going to be pretty brutal. But 2% is my guesstimation, so I think he'll probably go down to like 51%. And then Master Yi, surprisingly enough, has been getting this, and I think a big part of it is you get to go invisible, and it buys you a little more time to wait on your Q to reset again, and it just makes you extremely difficult to target in team fights, because you can't be targeted when you're an Alpha Strike, and you can't be targeted when you're invisible most of the time. So if you get a kill and it resets your Q, they don't even have that little split second to target you while you're invisible, because you're just gonna Alpha Strike again and you kill someone else and turn invisible again. So it's a pretty obnoxious interaction with Yi, and that has actually made Yi pretty strong much earlier in the game than he used to be. Now, he does have other alternative builds, so he can go Kraken, and you do see Kraken quite a bit on him as well, so he's not going to be affected as much as Kha'zix. He can just rotate to a different item and probably still be similarly effective, but it will nerf one of his more powerful, more obnoxious builds. Prowler Claw, I mean, I guess they're just nerfing this just for the hell of it, because like nobody gets this item. The only champ where this might be somewhat irreplaceable would be Pyke, because that allows him to reposition and get a stun, and this is going to be a huge nerf to Pyke, because once again, he wants to get this kill so he can get that gold rolling in, get those resets with his ult, and that's how a lot of these AD champs are. They need the resets. So that's rough on him. I know people have been goofing around with this on like Lee Sin, who's pretty off meta, and there are better picks on him anyways. So I just don't think this is going to affect most people. I don't even think Rengar gets this, the person that it's named after. So there are a couple of cute interactions with it, but by and large, it's not going to impact the meta that much. Rocket Belt. Now this will be very impactful for the meta, because there are a lot of champions, and this is the one that's getting hit the hardest. Because Rocket Belt used to be, I think I've got it. I don't have the screen pulled up with it, but I think it used to be something like 225 to 275 base, and now they're taking it down to 125 base. It might have been 200 to 275 base, but they're taking it down all the way to so by the time you bought it, it was about 215, but it could cap out at up to 275 damage on the Rocket Belt, and now they're taking it down to 125 at all ranks. So right off the bat, whenever you buy this, you're losing like 90 proc damage, and it could go all the way up as high as 150 proc damage, and you can hit multiple targets with this. That is catastrophic for especially some of the assassins, like the Fizz, the Fiddlesticks. You know, Fiddle has a very small window to kill him. Like, those champs are really going to struggle with this. Now, you are getting 10 more AP off of it, and you are getting 100 more health. So Galio may not mind it as much, because Galio is primarily using this in order to get that movement speed boost so he can more reliably land a taunt. And he might actually, I don't know his ratios, he might actually like the AP, and he's going to like the health a bit more. So similar with Vlad, Vlad likes the speed, and he scales really well with HP and AP. So Vlad and Galio might, it's not going to be a buff, but it may not be as bad for those champs, and they still might get it. But for someone like Fizz, who doesn't really care about the HP, and just needs to kill him quick in that one rotation, it's going to be a problem. Echo might be able to go something else as well, but it's going to be a pretty big nerf. Pretty big nerf all around. You know, the tanky HP type of champs might be able to get around it, but that's the biggest one, just because it's a drop of like 90 to start and all the way up to as high as 150. So that's a nuts nerf. So that item's in the gutter, I'm pretty sure. If you have any alternative, you need to get it. Now, Night Harvester is another one that's getting nerfed here. So it's also getting 10 extra HP, and then it's getting 50 extra HP, 10 extra AP. Now, its average right now, these still do have the 15% like AP scaling. It just doesn't scale per level anymore. So it still scales with your raw AP, but it does not scale with level. It's just this flat 125 at all ranks. So Harvester, I think, was something like 125 scaling up to like 200, and now it's just going to be flat 125. So you're losing about 35 when you buy it, all the way up to 75. So that's bad, but that's like half as bad as Rocket Belt is. And there might be some champs, like maybe Recon, I doubt it, but there might be some champs where support champs where that might like this, because the per level doesn't matter as much as support because you're a lower level anyways, and the raw AP might be good and the HP might be good. I still think it's going to be a pretty big nerf. So champions like this would be Fiddle, Eve, Vlad, Rumble, Elise. And the thing is, most champs that would use Rocket Belt, Harvester would be their backup, right? And so it's like double whammying them, saying, no, you can't have any good mythics. You have to buy one of the mana mythics, and you're going to be disappointed. Pretty much is what a lot of this is saying. What is the other Harvester, Rocket Belt? Let me look here real quick. What's the other non-mana one that didn't get nerfed? I know that the ice one is awful, and that's the one that's been buffed. The mana ones got nerfed a while ago. Blanking out. So we have Harvester, Ludens is a mana one, Leandri's is a mana one, Rocket Belt. I cannot remember. It's not Prowler, obviously not Prowler's Claw. Are there only 2 non-mana ones? Are there 4 mana ones? So there's this one, Riftmaker. Okay, so Riftmaker got a pass here, so champs that want... Riftmaker got hit pretty hard a while ago, but maybe some of these champs want Riftmaker. Maybe Vlad would want that, possibly. So, I mean, champs that want Riftmaker, I guess, if they have an alternative, maybe this is okay. But it's really just those burst damage champs that got knocked out here, so... Anyways, pretty big nerfs. It's possible, maybe on some supports it could be a little bit better, maybe on Zyra or something, but overall I think it's pretty bad. Okay, Trinity, 35 AD is going down to 25 AD, and then you're getting from 10 ability haste up to 20. I think this is a pretty big nerf, unless there's a champ that has really low AD ratios. Camille and Vi definitely have high AD ratios. I think Aurelia does too, although I'm not 100%. Most of the time there's an alternative to Trinity though. So Divine Sunder is not getting touched. Also, a lot of the other items are. So Divine Sunder might become more popular on some of these champs. Stridebreaker is a Trinity alternative as well. That's still getting nerfed here in a second. We'll talk about it. So anything that can get Divine Sunder might be a little bit better depending on the matchup. I mean, it's not like Trinity's unplayable with this. If you have really long cooldowns, the extra 10 ability haste might be good, especially if you have low AD ratios, but it's a significant nerf. It's not as bad as these, I don't think, because the active is still doing the most, like, still doing a hell of a lot of damage, and that's most of the damage on this item. Then you still have, like, the movement speed, so it's not getting hit as hard, but it'll still be noticeable. Camille, Irelia, and Vi. Camille will be fine. There's alternative items. Irelia, I don't know. Vi, probably, I don't know. It's going to hurt Vi and Irelia more than Camille, but Gore Drinker, thank God they're nerfing this. This is like one of the most OP items in the preseason. So this one's sort of complicated. They're taking it from 110% AD down to 100%. Okay, so it's losing a little bit of scaling, like 9% scaling. And now the swipe, it's healing you for 12% of your missing health still, but then 20% to 20, they're buffing it up to 25% of your total AD, but each sequential hit is going to recheck your missing health for the 12%. So in a team fight, if you're hitting a lot of people with Gore Drinker, this is going to be worse. So if you're hitting like 2 or 3 people, it's going to say, okay, if you were at, I don't know, you're missing 100 health, then it's going to check once and say, okay, now you're healed. You're all the way up to 150, and then it's going to check the 12% there. You're missing less health. You're missing 50 less health, so it's going to heal you for less. So basically, like right now, it checks all of them at the same time after the hit is complete, but now it's going to check them in order. So that basically, if you're hitting like 3 people or more, it'll definitely be noticeable. If you're only hitting 1 person with this, it's actually a buff to the healings. It's going 25%. If you're hitting 2 people, I don't know. It's going to depend on the champion and how much AD you have, and how much health you're missing. But if you're higher health and you have more AD, then this is going to be more of a buff when you're hitting fewer champions. So 1 is definitely a buff. 2 might be a buff depending on how much health you're missing and how much AD you have. And then 3 is almost certainly going to be a nerf unless you're like at full health. So I don't know. This isn't the nerf I was looking for. I was looking for a much harder sledgehammer on this item, but I guess I'll take it. But it's not even really a nerf, honestly. They are nerfing the AD, but the healing against single targets actually going to be higher, so it's going to be stronger in lane with like Aatrox and things like that. So I don't know. But it could be a nerf for Aatrox, Kayn, Fiora, Wukong, and Olaf. Those are some of the biggest like meta abusers. There are many more as well. It's a very popular item right now, but these are some of the bigger offenders. But I think they'll still get it, and I think it'll still be effective, especially in 1v1 situations. Okay, Stridebreaker, 110% AD now to 100%. They're nerfing the raw AD on it as well. So they're taking it from 50 down to 45, but they're giving it 10 ability haste. Now, I'm not sure about this. This, you're trading 10 AD for 20 ability haste. That is closer, or you're trading 5 AD for 10 ability haste. That's closer to equal. 5 AD is worth 185 gold, and 10 ability haste is going to be worth 270 gold. So in terms of gold equivalencies, it's a buff. But a lot of those champs want to kill somebody. So it just depends on their cooldowns. This one's a little more neutral. Like, this is definitely a nerf, but this is questionable. Depends on the AD ratios, and depends on the cooldowns. So, like, Udyr is not going to get that much benefit out of the cooldowns because his cooldowns are already super low. But something like Garen, who really likes his spin to win and his Q, and they're on kind of longer cooldowns, he might actually like this a little bit more. Darius might like this a little bit more. I don't know the Q cooldowns, but there might be some champs that actually want the cooldowns a little bit more. Anyways, someone like Camille or Fiora might like this too. I know she was getting that, but she gets a flat cooldown reduction whenever she procs. I think whenever she procs when she hits somebody with her Q, it's a flat reduction. So I think ability haste is actually really good on her. So maybe she likes this. So I don't know. Light nerf, possibly a buff on some champions. Runins. So this is potentially a colossal buff, but it's going to change the order that people get Runins. So it's a late game buff, or like mid to late game buff. So it's 3,400 gold. It's going down to 2,500 gold, but you're losing all of your AD, and the bolts no longer scale with your raw AD. So this is going to favor on-hit builds, so champions that would get stuff like Blade of the Ruined King, which a lot of champs aren't doing that. Maybe Gensu's. There aren't that many champs that are doing the on-hit, like the classic Blade of the Ruined King into Runin's build right now. Like, Blade's primarily only built on like bruisers, from what I can remember. I don't see a lot of ADCs doing it these days. But it's lowering the cost by 900, but you're losing 25 AD, and that's 875 gold worth of AD. So it's about cost neutral, but you can get it much faster. So champions that have some kind of special interaction with the bolts and want this item early are going to love it. So like Kai'Sa, who can, spread her passive, corruption on people. Then you have, or Void Touch, or whatever it's called, Twitch with the poison, Ashe with the slows in team fights, and Jinx with the rockets. So these are champs that historically really like Runins. So I think they're going to like it. Now, will you get it second after your Mythic? I don't know. It's a little weird on Kai'Sa because you need to evolve your Q. So you probably won't get it second. You'll probably get something else, like maybe the Collector. I play with a really good Kai'Sa on stream sometimes, and he was saying that he really likes Collector second anyways, and so this is going to make the third item a lot better because it's only going to be 2,500 gold, so that's going to help accelerate you into that team fight for your third item. Twitch, I don't think the AD, I mean, he has good AD ratios, but you just really want to spread that poison out fast as Twitch, so I think it's a buff to Twitch. And then Ashe is going to like this, spreading the slows out to everybody. And then Jinx is probably going to like it as well. So overall, I think it's a buff for those types of champs. And with the exception of Kai'Sa, a lot of them are... Ashe is still pretty good, but like Twitch and Jinx are pretty far out of the meta. You can still play them, but they're not everybody's favorite right now. So I think that's good. And this helps wave clear a lot too, which is helpful. So anyways, I think this is a pretty good change. Pretty good change overall. Brings it in line with the other Zeal items. And Muramana, this item just got blasted. It just got deleted. They might as well have just deleted the item from the game, in my opinion. So they are buffing, or they are nerfing the cost from 2,600 all the way up to 2,900. So now it's on par with some of the other, like, more broken items, like the Collector. And the proc damage is going from 4% on hit all the way down to 2.5% on hit of your max mana. That is catastrophic. That's so much less damage. So now instead of doing something like 80 on hit, you're doing 50 as Ezreal, right? Like, I don't know the exact percentage there. It's a lot. It's like you're losing like 40% of your damage on this item. Now, yes, you are getting a little bit more AD, right? So if you have 2,000 mana, when you complete this item with your other items and all that stuff, maybe you're going from 40 AD to 50 AD bonus, but it is not worth losing that proc damage. I don't think so. So that is really, really bad. Because historically, why this item has become so popular in the last year and a half, if you haven't really watched my channel or paid attention to the meta, is because it was very cheap. So it used to be 2,400 gold, which was significantly cheaper than other items. And once you transformed it, it was incredibly cost efficient. So you're basically sacrificing your early game in order to have a much stronger late game. And it used to work really well with popular items. So it worked really well with Hurricane. But as I just said, a lot of people aren't getting Hurricane as much anymore. There's still some, but a lot of people aren't doing it as much. And it worked really well with Ginsu's, which is pretty far out of the meta on most champions right now. It just doesn't... They just nerfed it a lot in the preseason. So it's not cheaper, and a lot of the items that it interacts with are really not meta right now. And the early game is so important. You are going to get annihilated if you come in and you try to go tier into something like Leona Draven or Alistar Jhin or Zyra Misfortune or just anything. Like, you're going to get blasted. And so now there's just not even a trade-off because the scaling is much worse, in my opinion. Now, maybe my math is wrong on this. Maybe this extra 0.5% AD makes up for losing the 1.5% proc damage, but I don't think so. Because, like, once again, the interaction is the proc, right? It's the Hurricane bolts putting the proc on multiple people. It's the Ginsu's triggering the proc twice on people. So it's abusing that proc damage, not necessarily the AD damage. And if you're getting something like Hurricane, the extra 2.5% AD, it's not going to matter as much because you're not going to have as much AD to begin with. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it's the AD is based on your mana, not based on your current AD. But anyway, I think it's gutted. No one's going to get this item, in my opinion. So this is extremely bad for Ezreal because he really doesn't have a choice, and he's already a really bad champion in this meta right now. Just poor Ezreal, dude. Like, everyone tries to play him. He's cool, he's fun, but he's so terrible right now, and this is going to be so much worse. Like, because what's he going to do? Like, they already got rid of Presence of Mind. I mean, people legit might start just playing AP Ezreal with like Leandries or something. I mean, that's the only thing I can really think of. You're going to have mana from somewhere. So if, like, maybe it's just AP Ezreal with Leandries, maybe he tries to get Seraphs. They need to at least buff his AP ratios if that's what they're going to do to him. Because I just don't think he can function. I mean, I don't know. Luden's Ezreal? I don't know, man. People are going to have to get really creative. And it's going to have to be some kind of AP variant most likely, because I just am not even sure this item's going to be viable at all anymore on him. But this is indirectly going to be a buff to just YOLO Q Kai'Sa, Ashe, Lucian, and Twitch, so they will quit buying this stupid item on them. It's so bad. It's so bad on them right now. And so many people get baited with like this Ashe mandate build. You're still going to see it. It's way worse now. Lucian gets baited into going for this item. Twitch sometimes gets baited into going for this item. And once again, it's because those are Hurricane and or Ginsu abusers potentially. Lucian just has the double tap interaction. But hopefully people will stop buying this item. We'll see. But maybe the all capsers will quit pushing it. So anyways, who are the big winners out of all these items then? Since we talked about a bunch of stuff that got nerfed, well, it's the stuff that the other alternative options. So Leandries and Ludens, two extremely powerful mana items. So the mana mages are really going to like these changes, right? Because they're kind of weak to assassins sometimes too. So Anivia is going to love this. She's already really strong. Victor, already very strong. He's going to love this. I think Orianna is going to like this. I think she's a Ludens user. What else? Just anything that's not going to be one of those. Ryze is really going to like this. Now, I'm not sure what Ryze would get as far as a mythic. I haven't seen Ryze in the meta. He's getting more buffs here in a little bit. Probably Ludens. Cassio. So all of those champs are really going to like these types of items. And Gale Force is mega OP. I'm really surprised they have not hot nerfed this thing. If you just go look at the win rates on champions, I don't have it pulled up here right now, but like low-key, this item is pretty much OP on anybody that can get it. If you just go look at the win rates, it's 2 or 3% higher Gale Force than like almost anything else on almost every 80 carry. So start using Gale Force. Maybe Gale Force Ezreal, who knows? But Gale Force is super strong, and there are a lot of really powerful interactions out there with Gale Force. So someone like, I don't think you'd go Gale Force, like Kha'zix or something. I don't know, maybe that's what he has to go now. But like Graves has started running Gale Force, which can be pretty strong. I think the Gore Drinker people are probably still just going to run Gore Drinker. The Stridebreaker runners, but just people are just trying Gale Force out on more and more champions, and it's just going to become increasingly really, really strong. And then Eclipse. So this is the substitute for Gore Drinker that you might see a little bit more. So, you know, maybe Aatrox goes back to Eclipse. Maybe, you know, Kayn, Fiora, all these champs can go for Eclipse as well. Eclipse was nerfed a lot also. So I don't know, but most of these champs can also go Eclipse pretty comfortably. So, anyways, these are the items that you might start seeing a little bit more of. Okay, and then let's go back to the main thing and just finish up here. So, the other changes that they are doing now, they are they are removing, so you can do spells also proc Mirror Mana. There were some Korean builds out there, I think with like Ryze and some other champs, where instead of getting Archangels, they would just get Mirror Mana. And just do the physical damage off of the splash. I don't think it was that great. It was kind of popular somewhat, but it never really made it to mainstream. But I think that build's going to be dead in the water. Okay, so Master Yi is getting a nerf, 18 seconds to 14 seconds on his Q, all the way down. Now it's going 18 to 16, so this is potentially really big, depending on how much CDR he has. Because if he doesn't get that Q reset fast enough, then he's going to die most of the time, especially if he's not mega fed. So pretty substantial nerf, I think, to Master Yi, and that's good. I mean, he's a really toxic champ anyways. He's just way too linear. He's just a straight booster champ. I don't think a lot of people except for Yi mains are going to be sad, because that's the type of champ where you could do great in your lane, right? You can go 5-0 and be up 40 CS, but if he's got 5 kills off of farming your top laner, there just may not be anything you can do about it as an ADC or whatever, right? Because he's just going to run at you and just delete you. So that's why he's a very frustrating champ, because sometimes it just doesn't matter how well you do in the game. If your team does not have the answer to him, if they don't have a lot of CC and they don't coordinate it well enough, you just might get 1v9'd. And that's why he's such a popular booster champion. But anyways, I'm okay with him being nerfed. Let me put it that way. Okay, so Fiddlesticks. Fiddlesticks does have a high win rate. I've had a lot of success on him in the last couple of weeks. Every time I play him, I think I've had a pretty high win rate. And he is very strong right now. So I don't, he deserves to be nerfed a little bit, even though you don't see him in pro. But taking the W down 1 second, and this is pretty substantial again, because kind of like Master Yi, that cooldown matters a lot, right? Because it's that very last tick that does the vast majority of the damage and heals you for a pretty good chunk. So, having to wait just a little bit longer, you may not get off that last tick before someone's able to turn it on you. So that, in conjunction, the Fiddlesticks, you got to remember that they also nerfed the Night Harvester and they also nerfed Rocket Belt, and those are his 2 mythics, and he really doesn't have a lot of other choices. He doesn't want to do the Omni Vamp healing over time one, and he really doesn't want to do you can do Leandries, and that's what he might switch over to. But you really want to kill them fast, right? Whenever you go in, you need them to die before they get unfeared. So it might just be Leandries into the mask. I'm surprised they didn't nerf the mask, because a lot of the strong champions right now are running that Demonic Embrace and Leandries. So I'm surprised both of those didn't get touched, but they're not burst, so that's why. They really just wanted to lower the burst a little bit, because people cry about burst all the time on forums. And no one wants to play tanks. But anyways, so good little nerf, probably. Pantheon, regions, lowered a little bit. Okay, whatever. W-empowered scaling is down. That's pretty substantial, because I think that's total AD. I'm not a Pantheon expert, but he's been doing okay in the top lane. I think people overreact because he's a champ where it feels like there's not much counterplay when he's far ahead. You just basically point-click stun you, you're dead. So he's extremely frustrating in the laning phase. But he does still fall off pretty hard late game. If he snowballs, it can be a problem. But once again, I'm not upset if he's not in the meta, right? So it's like same thing with Master Yi. I mean, Pantheon's probably not going to 1v9, but he is certainly extremely oppressive in the lane when he's ahead in a lot of matchups. So he just forces the enemy to pick certain things. And he's played a lot in pro. He's like pick ban in pro. At least he was in the winter tournament. So there's definitely some justification for nerfing Pantheon here. Okay, buffing Ryze. So that's a pretty substantial buff to Ryze, taking it down to 32. He maxes his Q first, and he spams that thing a lot. So that might mean that he doesn't have to go tier anymore. I'm not sure if I would go that far with it, but I don't know, maybe. But either way, it doesn't look like a lot. Oh, just 8 mana per Q, but you got to think it in terms of percentages, right? Like his Q is going to cost 20% less, which means he's going to have a lot of extra mana in his mana pool. So, I don't know. Maybe this means that he can just go like Ludens and, maybe do Presence of Mind or something like that and just go straight into, bigger ticket damage items. I'm not really up to date on current Ryze builds, but the fact they just nerfed a lot of burst damage out of there, and the fact that his item, Ludens, has not really been hit that hard in the preseason, I think it's going to bode very well for him. So, yeah, we'll see if he has the time to scale. Now, he may not even need as much time, right? If he's not going tier, if he can find an alternative build, if you can do something other than tier. Let me see if everyone's still going tier. Once again, I'm not sure if his mana can sustain that. But if the fight's over, if you just blow him up, maybe you don't need it. Just look real quick at him. So, yeah, obviously having some problems here. Everyone's still going Ludens tier. I feel like there's got to be something better than that, though. I don't know. Maybe there's just not. I really wish that Cosmic Drive was more viable. They should make this a 2,500 gold item and just nerf the stats accordingly. How about just take the health off? Who cares about the health? Just take off 200 health. That is the equivalency of about 500 gold. Just Make it 2,500. Now maybe that's too much HP or too much AP for that price. I don't know, but it feels like this item would be really good on a lot of champs, but it's just the price point. So I don't know what else he can get. Like, I guess he doesn't work that well with Demonic Embrace. Death Cap's very expensive. So I'm not really sure what he's going next. I mean, maybe Banshees or something. But anyways, it's going to be a buff to him. So I don't expect him to gain a ton. But the way the meta's shaken out, like, maybe. Especially if you can get away from tier somehow. Maybe. So maybe 1 or 2% up. Maybe it gets closer. 49% win rate, something like that. Kiana. So extra HP regen, AD. She gets 2 AD. I don't think that works. I think that, I mean, she's going to take... I guess she's going to take Eclipse. Probably. Like, you can't really do Dustblade or anything on her, I don't think, anymore, especially after the nerfs. So, I mean, she can use Eclipse, but I don't think it's going to matter in the meta too much. It's just a little bit of regen, a little bit of AD, doesn't matter. Xayah, the ECD is going 12 to 8 seconds, 10 to 8. So, I think a lot of people max W on her, maybe, but you can max E. This is certainly going to help the E max. Because the mana's down 30. I just don't think that's what's wrong with her. Like, what's wrong with her is a 160-second cooldown on her... 160-second cooldown on her ability. And there's not a good ability haste item for AD, like traditional ADCs right now, I don't think. Now, people have not explored Gale Force, but using Gale Force to reposition to get the feathers could actually be a really nice interaction to make sure that you're going to... Like, that's pretty high skill cap, but to make sure you get the geometry right for the feather pull. So you have to be careful because she can be very OP in the pro meta. If she's good and Rakan's good, and Rakan's good, people just don't play him right now in pro. He had a 100% win rate in the winter tournament, but he was only picked like 5 times. So I don't know. Is mana really the problem? I don't think so. I think she just does. It's just 160 seconds on the ult is bad, and she just doesn't have great items. Like the mages, I think that want the cooldown reduction just don't have an item right now. Like I know they can go for. God, I can't even remember because nobody gets that item anymore. The green scythe item. Like I know you can get that item, but it's like what's she gonna get? Like Kraken? I mean, maybe she could go Halo Blades Kraken or something and just like get those feathers down, just boom, 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 trigger Kraken, and then go for the root immediately after that and just try to blow somebody up. Maybe that's what she has to go. But she's just really weird builds. Essence Reaver, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, just okay, so basically what I predicted, Halo Blades Kraken is what she's trying to do right now, and then Essence Reaver. Now, I do think that Gale Force, though, people are trying the Gale Force, but Kraken is better right now. I don't know. She's just in a weird spot. She just has long cooldowns, and just her upfront damage is not as big, and it's conditional, right? You have to get the pullback on the feathers. So I guess there are Navori Quick Blades. I wish that was 20% of total cooldown and not remaining. The remaining cooldown makes that item a lot less strong than people think it is on most champions. Like, that would be a really cool option, though, on, like, Lucian and Xayah and things like that. So, I don't know. They just need to give this, like, maybe 5 more attack damage to make this more viable on more champions. But I don't know. I don't think it's going to matter that much, because that's not the problem with it. Although, maybe she gets a percentage or 2 off of this. We'll see. Okay, Karma. Now, that's a pretty big buff to her shield. That's if you max shield first. Usually, you'll put 3 points in Q and then max shield. Karma's really low, though, right now in terms of win rate. I mean, she's, like, in the gutter. Like, one of the worst supports. Which is weird, because it seems like a lot of these items and things would be very strong on her. Yeah, she's at 46%, which is... I mean, that's almost bottom of the barrel of, like, mainstream supports. What are we... Okay, yeah, we're on supports here. It's pretty low. And a big part of it, I mean, I don't know, like, you have a slow, so you can trigger Mandate with your Q. You're a lane bully. You have good shielding and scaling later on. It's just, I don't know. I guess her numbers are just too low. Now, she doesn't have much peel. So if you have a Leona or an Alistar or, you know, any of these other champs that get in your face, they can blow you up. And she's kind of weak to poke early. She can't really help. She doesn't have a heal. She just has a shield. So I don't know. I mean, Imperial seems like it should be okay on her, but she just falls off a cliff win rate wise. So I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be enough, but taking her shield up to 240 is pretty big because I think that's going to affect her empowered shield too. Her R, I think it's a percentage of her base shield. So getting 40 extra shield, especially when your empowered shield goes up, maybe. I mean, she's going to go up some off of this for sure. I don't think she's going to get to 50%. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think maybe she gets to 49 or something. So it'll be nice. Showing a little love. She's a good team fight support. Gnar, they just keep trying to make this champion relevant again, and he just hasn't been relevant for like 5 years or something. They just keep throwing numbers at him, and every time I think this is it. He's going to be good now. Here's how you fix Gnar. Are you listening, Riot? Here's how you fix him. Here's how you fix him. Make it where you can control his ult. When he's at max rage, he can press the button like Shyvana and turn into his ult when he wants to. Boom, that's it. Fixed. Like, that's all you have to do. If you need to nerf the other numbers for consistency, that's fine. But the problem is his two different modes have extremely different play styles and require different items to excel. And you're like at the whim of both your team and the enemy team. It's too much random. Like, for him to work in pro, his numbers had to be so high, and that was when there weren't a lot of other champions that are even more busted that have come out since he was relevant, right? But you had to basically just about turn into Mega Gnar and teleport in and get a flank behind people and then turn into Mega Gnar at the right time and get like a wall slam. So you had to turn at the right time, teleport at the right time, and they had to position themselves to where they were close to a wall, and you could either jump on them or flash on them and get a wall slam. It's just like way, way too many conditions to be reliable. But if they would just make it to where you could press the transform whenever you want, once your bar is full, of course. I mean, I know that's the theme of him, right? Is he can't control it and he just blows up or whatever, but every other form-changing champ, you have some kind of control over when they're going to change, and at least that I can think of. Because, like, with Little Gnar, you know, there could be a build, like an on-hit build, where you're just this kind of, like, backline, you know, like, really squirrely, difficult to catch, kind of utility mini marksman, you know, type of thing, right? Like a Quint, maybe not necessarily Quint, I can't think of a great example, but y'all know what I'm saying. Just like a short range, like utility marksman type of champ, and you could build stuff for that, right? You could build Blade of the Ruined King. You could, you know, go for some kind of on-hit build with him and not feel terrible about it. Or, you know, you could just go for the tank build and just hold on to that tank for the right moment, right? For right when the fight's about to break out, boom, you jump in, you know, you jump on them with tank and you're ready to go. Because right now they can just see that you've got Mega Gnar, or just about that you're going to go Mega, and then they just back off and wait or disengage, and then it just doesn't matter. So most people build him as though he's tank, but then you just kind of lose out on a lot of, like, opportunities where you could be maximizing the mini Gnar. So I don't know. That's what I would do. Make his form controllable. Just give him a rage bar. I mean, maybe you could even make it to where if he's out of combat for so long, his form drops. So you can't just hold it forever. Maybe that's a reasonable compromise, right? But just at least let him hold his form, you know, for like 10, 15 seconds, something like that. Maybe like make it like Rumble or something, like a heat type of system with his rage, right? Where if you're casting abilities or you're staying in combat or whatever, you're filling it up. Maybe like Tryndamyr's rage bar or something. But if you don't stay in combat, then you lose it a little bit. So I don't know. But anyways, what are they doing to him? So Mega Q damage is going up by 20 at early ranks. I believe you max Q first. So it's 40 at later ranks. Okay, so his base damage is higher. The slow is almost doubled. Okay, so that's pretty good. And then the mega dash range is extra 75. That's actually a really big deal, because that's how he engages. And then the E attack speed is going... I don't remember... Is that like when every third hit you get extra attack speed or something? Going from 4 seconds to 6 seconds. So, I mean, that seems really big, but I think they're just going to push his numbers so high that he's just going to be OB at some point. So, I don't know. I mean, that's a lot of buffs. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 buffs, all of which are definitely meaningful. So, I don't know. Maybe this does bring him back. I'm always baited into thinking that every time, but maybe this is the time, right? So... Anyways, very good buffs for Gnar. I'm not sure that we need Gnar in the meta. He's an interesting champion, I think, because there is the counterplay. Like I said, there is kind of the inconsistency about him, and there is plenty of counterplay to him, so that's good. Now, these Yasuo and Yone changes, I'm not an expert on these champions, but this seems like pretty big buffs, because I feel like Yone is very strong right now in the right hands. I know in Pro he's talked about a lot, and I don't think Yasuo is that bad either, if it's a good Yasuo player. But Yone in particular seems really good right now in the right hands. So his bonus damage off of crit is going from 100% to 150%. Okay, that seems really big. So he does way more damage whenever he crits. The conversion, the P crit conversion, 1%. So this is... Let me just read him real quick. So if you go over 100%, it converts the crit, correct? So they get double crit. Doubles critical strike from all other sources, but his critical strikes only deal a certain amount. Every 1% crit over in excess of 100% is converted at a 0.5 ratio. Okay. So it's going to be a 0.4 ratio. Passive crit bonus 100% to 150%. Yone's basic attacks alternate between using a steel sword, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's Yone specific. Okay, so it doubles it from all sources, but his critical strikes only deal 57% bonus damage and more if you have Infinity Edge. So what is... Oh, is this a nerf? Is it saying that you don't get the bonus until you have 150% crit? That can't be right. Then, like, a little bit less AD per level. I don't understand. Okay, let me look at Yasuo and see if that's more clear. It's the same thing. Total crit chance. Critical strikes deal 57% AD bonus damage. So you can have up to 150% crit? That doesn't even make any sense. I don't know. I can't tell. I'm going to have to read the official patch notes or listen to someone who's like a Yasuo or Yone expert to feel how this works. I thought your crits were basically going to do more damage. The crit bonus damage I thought was going to go up, but that if you had excess crit, it was going to be worth less. So then you would want 2 crit items to go to 80%, but if you go over, then it was going to be worse. That was my read on it, but maybe not. I don't know. Anyways, I mean, if this is a nerf, I mean, 100% to 150% seems like a buff. I don't know. Jury's out. We'll have to see some people who are more expert with that. But Yone's really good right now. Yasuo is situational, but okay. But I think that Yone is actually quite strong. And the thing that makes Yone a lot stronger right now is I think his trading is just more consistent. And it's really strong, right? When you can just go at him. I think it's with your W in your shadow form and get this extra range and just chase people down with it. And then it's just a lot easier to hit that knock-up, I think, as well. I think it's just a lot easier to play. And then he does mixed damage, so it's a lot harder to itemize against him because he's going to do half magic and half physical damage a lot of the time as well, which is really toxic balancing, by the way. and he also gets a shield, I think, from his W, and he scales with attacks. He's just got a lot of stuff going on, but I just feel like he's a lot more consistent in his damage. He doesn't have the wind wall for that kind of outplay, but I just feel like his W just gives a lot more consistency than just having to either wait on someone else to knock someone up for you, or having to hit that tornado whenever you go all in. And he's a bit easier to play. He's still like kind of hard to play, but if Yasuo is like a 9 or a 10 on the difficulty scale, Yone is probably like a 7 or an 8. But anyways, okay, well, that's going to be it. We'll keep the patch notes under an hour, so hopefully you enjoyed this. Overall, pretty good changes. I think for the most part, I like most of these. Be sure to check out the tier list. I'll walk you through which champions I think are going to be strong on this patch. It might shake up the patch, the meta, quite a bit. I mean, these are significant nerfs on these items, especially, and I don't know. Like, I tried to give you kind of the easy fruit, the stuff that's definitely going to be impacted, but this could have ripple effects, right? So if there's a lot less burst, I think a big winner here is going to be ADCs. I mean, people keep crying about ADCs, but I think they're really good. It's just really hard to play it, so you don't see a lot of good ADCs in solo queue. But I think that a lot of these are really big buffs. Like, Gale Force was a huge buff, and now that, you know, there's a chance Fizz or Zed don't one-shot you as easily as they used to, and that type of stuff, that's going to favor longer fights, and that's going to favor ADCs. So, anyways, I think ADCs are going to be in good shape, and then maybe some of the tanks might be in better shape because they nerfed a lot of the damage, so it's going to be harder to kill the tanks. So, I don't know. We'll see. But I'll think about it a little bit more, and I'll walk you through what I think the meta might be in the tier list video. So be sure to check all those out. But anyways, that's going to be it. Have a good day. We'll see you next time.